I was hyper aware. We had a lot of conversations about this, that yes, as men, you are told not to have relationships with people at work. But as women, I think the societal context is different. You're really easily pegged as a slut. And I never wanted that to be the case. Don't let your workplace stop you from falling in love, but also make sure that the person is actually interested in you before you go and ask them out, please. Today with me, I have a very special guest. I'm very, very excited to introduce my husband, Philip. You can now put a face to the name.
Hey, everybody.
We are going to talk about something that's a little bit taboo, which is relationships at work. Relationships at work, oftentimes, especially as women, we're told, don't you dare go and start up a relationship with a coworker.
You're also told that as a man.
You are. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I take that back. So I'm really, really excited to kind of sit down because I don't think we've even had this chat together in a really long time.
No, we haven't.
So I'll stop talking and let you say hi and tell me in your own words how you think we met.
So, hi everybody. It's actually nice to be on this. I live organized chaos vicariously through all the overheard conversations or like the brainstorming. So it's fun to actually be here in front of the camera. So how do we meet? At the time we were in London and I got a message being like, hey, there's this great person who's coming to join the team. Can you make sure that you look after her? Her name's Regan. And I think I must have just been running about a bit that day and I walk through the hall and I see you and I'm like, hey, you must be Regan. Come and find out how to make a cup of tea.
Sorry, I'm going to stop you really quickly. Okay. You didn't come up and be like, hey, you must be Regan. You came flying in there from a meeting and you were like,
who's this person?
Like, do you know how to make tea?
Yeah, that is probably actually how I did it. Honestly, this is because I had just worked out how the hot tap worked in the office. It was the new office we just moved in. So I was excited about this new thing and I wanted to share it.
I think the misconception that a lot of people have when they hear about our relationship is, oh, Regan was dating her boss. That's not true. He's very clearly not my boss, but we were working in very different departments. I was leading the marketing department for EMEA and APAC. You were leading research at the time. We were working for a very technical company. We had overlap, but the overlap was really in...
We were in the same office.
We were in this. Well, also, you did a lot of events for me.
That's
you were
true.
like a speaker at a lot of events, but still, there wasn't a direct reporting structure. Like, had there been that structure, then
It would have been very different.
Yeah, not to say that you can't fall in love if you are in a direct reporting structure. It's just you really should not have that. I feel like putting that dynamic into a relationship anyway.
Yeah, like that's just hard to start.
It's kind of fucked up. Okay, so how did it start? So we met. It was like day 3 of work for me. We went on a couple of walks around because I was like, we were working in crypto, but I was like, I don't know what the fuck this industry is. I really don't understand it. And you were very helpful.
Yeah, like I'd love to teach people about it. You know? So yeah, we'd walk around, you'd ask a bunch of questions, that curiosity, and we got talking that way. I think honestly, there was a good amount of time where it was like really professional. Like they were like, hey, we've got a job to do. And, you know, the industry at that point also was kind of crazy. So there was a lot to do. But then everything locked down. Genuinely for me, a big thing was you suddenly realize that you can't get anywhere when everything's locked down.
This is 2020 in London. We weren't allowed outside more than 1 hour a day. And 1 hour a day is very, very small.
Yeah.
Like, not that anyone actually followed that rule, but we tried to.
But also, you couldn't get on public transport to go visit someone. And turns out we actually lived pretty close and there was a park in the middle. And we're like, hey, want to just get out of this house?
I think like Philip and I, we didn't want to almost admit that we were friends.
Yeah, I think we were like trying to keep that professional relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, kind of it was coming in, you know?
Well, we were friends and then there was this like underlying, I don't know what you want to call it, which I think is probably the case for a lot of people when they think of starting a relationship at work. You don't want to assume. You never want to assume because that can put you in a super awkward position. But then you never want to move too fast. Right? Like you don't want to come in hot and heavy. It's not a situation where it's like, hey, we're both on a dating app. And so we know that both of us are into this. Like,
yeah, there was no swipe.
No, there was 0 swipe. And so we had to rely entirely on context clues. And he does not give great context clues.
Yeah, that's fair.
You gave like half context clues. I mean, like I didn't either. So our kind of like foray at flirting and trying to like be cutesy with each other and then, but also like be friends. It was just kind of this awkward thing to navigate with one another. And so I'm sure when I left the company, if you look back at my Slack thread with Philip, I think you'll find some like random ass things of us just like not having each other's number. What was it? Tiger King had just come out.
Yeah.
Everything had just locked down. I hadn't heard from you in a week or two.
I've just been watching Tiger King for a week.
You've just been watching Tiger King for a week. And all of a sudden I'm sitting on the floor in my living room and I get this message like, it's just a wonderful representation of America. It's a beautiful representation of American culture is what you said. I'm sure so many other people who are in relationships at work, they have a very similar, like slow crawl experience. And then how do we end up actually going on our first walk? Do you remember what I sent you? We both would run around Regent's Park. And Regent's Park is like the, Central Park. It's like the Golden Gate Park. And I lived about 5 minutes away from it. And so I would, during the pandemic, I'd go and I'd run there all the time. Philip and I had to get on work calls with one another. And every so often we would drop in like, oh, I, just went on a run around Regent's Park. And that's when you realize that we live close to one another. Yep. So then it was like, okay, how do I, again, professionally, and like give him the out if he doesn't want to go on a walk with me as friends? How do I say, let's go on a run together? So I think I sent you what was it? It was like a meme it was a picture of somebody's Fitbit record of them. It was like the GPS record. They had done a marathon running around their what is that word?
Garden?
No, thing that you pull cars into. Driveway. And I sent it to you, thought it was audacious. And then all of a sudden you were like, if you want to go on a run with me one time.
Except I think I could run a little bit faster.
Oh, much faster.
So we kind of ended up just walking and talking.
I hate running with people. Yeah. I don't know why I said yes to a run. Exactly. I don't know why I just wasn't immediately like, no run.
I guess that's the point of like, how do you make these connections? I've got to take the chance.
Buck up.
Yeah, exactly.
Bucked up and did it. So then we spent the pandemic kind of just being friends, right? Like we were just friends and we were walking, and we started to pick up on how often we were walking with one another. Yep. And then all of a sudden these conversations got longer and longer and longer, but neither one of us really wanted to, again, because I think we were like, we don't want to cross that professional boundary, which like sounds strange kind of looking back on it, but it made sense.
It makes sense.
And then I think it just hit a point where we were like, we can't deny this anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, let's not.
This is actually something. Yeah. So we're in a relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, now we're married. Now it's like 2021.
Yep.
And we're going, all right, when do we tell work?
Yes.
And if you've ever had that conversation at work, send me a message. I want to know about this because our conversation was surprisingly
easy. Like good in a way.
Yeah.
We decided to tell people relatively early.
You think?
I feel like we did. We definitely were like, hey, let's see if this relationship works. And then at that point, we were like, cool, this makes sense. You don't think?
I feel like we were pretty conservative. The reason why I think I say that is because at work, my name came up far less often than your name came up in conversation. Because Philip was a thought leader at the company that I was working for, which meant that my team and I had to work with him quite often. I was pitching him at conferences. I was pitching him on podcasts. My team was doing the same exact thing. So I had to act all nonchalant because people would go just gushing about Philip is such a great speaker and Philip's so wonderful and blah, 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 blah. And I'd always have to be like, yeah.
So we're then like, okay, we're going to tell them. And we have a people team, a great people team, and put a call in the calendar. And obviously we're still all virtual. Like it's,
Oh, yeah. We were still working remotely.
And so we were talking to the people team and we were like, hey, we have some news. And they're like, okay. And we're like, hey, we're in a relationship. And they just turn around and we're like, great, that is good news. I don't get good news like 90% of my day. So just great.
I was expecting, I'm a mega preparer. So we had sat down and gone, right, here's how we're going to explain it. And like remind them there's no reporting structure. Remind them there's like, it's a consensual relationship, that we're like both on the same page, that, we've thought this through.
We need to sign something.
Yeah, exactly. Like we were fully prepared to have to sign something that said, if we break up, that's our problem, not theirs. Yeah. And they just like threw their thumbs up there and said, cool beans.
I do think you build trust up as well in a relationship. Like obviously there are like policies around this that companies have and they should have them. But I also do feel like you've got to bring your like best self to work, be actually who you are and show that you're like a genuine caring person.
Yeah.
And kind of build that trust up. And I think then communicate that trust. I think like we were both sitting there together and we're like, hey, this is a thing that like we really want to do. So you could tell that it was genuine.
But telling people was probably one of the more awkward parts of it because you're kind of like, do you care?
Yeah, exactly.
And then trying to figure out like at what point, where do you need to tell someone and where do you not need to tell someone? And that's kind of awkward when you're working because someone's name comes up of like, oh, we need to contact Philip about this thing. If I am just going to see you in 10 minutes or if you're working upstairs and I'm downstairs, do I go, I'll just go ask him? Or do I set that professional boundary and go, cool, let's think about like how we would actually do this? Sometimes it was hard to almost code switch and need to take myself out of girlfriend mode and put myself in professional Regan mode. Yeah, exactly. In colleague mode.
But actually, I think, and we talked about this, like it was really important not to like use the relationship to pass that information on. You know, you didn't want to kind of bring, oh, person X wants to chat to you, or like, hey, can you move that meeting around because of whatever? Because like that brings work into your personal life. And like, that's not like a blurring of lines. It's bad from the company perspective. In fact, it's kind of great. They feel like they get you to work.
24/7.
Yeah.
That's why Google has laundry on site.
Exactly. But for us, we were like, no, we need to keep those parts of our life separate. So yes, I can shout upstairs or like, you know, send you a WhatsApp and get it done. But yeah, we just don't want to do that.
Did you ever find that hard though?
Yeah, because it's always easier. And it's like a thing to come and tell you about as well. And like we have loads to talk about, but it's like, hey, how was your day? Such a loaded almost topic when you work together.
It's really hard not to constantly talk about work.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard because we didn't want to create our entire relationship around work, although that would suck. And you'd be another one of those unfortunate stereotypes of a lot of people start relationships at work and it's what do they call it? A relationship of convenience.
Right.
And we knew that wasn't the case, but I wanted to try really hard to really, really make sure that we never even got close to that line. Though sometimes we definitely did because there were times where it was just, I don't know, work stresses you out. And it was a double-edged sword. Sometimes it was nice to get to go and talk to you because you knew all the context. I didn't need to give any background. But then other times you were like, okay, enough fucking work. Done with this. I can't do it anymore. Did you immediately tell people or did you kind of wait and sit back and be like, we'll kind of cross that bridge when we get there?
So like I immediately told like almost like the people I'm close with and the HR team might tell.
Yeah.
So like, you know, kind of bosses, etc.
Yeah.
Just because I wanted them to hear it from me. You don't want to like post in the company Slack channel. It's like, it's kind of not that important, like you said.
Yeah. Like it's super important for us, but no one else really gives a shit that we're dating. But the part where it got really tricky was when we got back in person because all of a sudden then we had these events that we needed to go to together.
Yep.
I was hyper aware. We had a lot of conversations about this, that yes, as men, you are told not to have relationships with people at work. But as women, I think the societal context is different. You're really easily pegged as a slut. You're really easily pegged as someone who's just trying to get ahead or just, I don't know, like trying to climb the ladder. And people very quickly judge you. And I never wanted that to be the case. I never wanted it to be the case that like I was standing too close to you at events. I was doing too much PDA. I was laughing too much. I was pitching you too much for conferences. Yeah. I may have almost over-indexed on the opposite, where I would really justify every single decision that I made in the context of you. And I don't know if that was right. I don't know if you felt that. I don't know how you think about it.
I think I felt the same. Like, hey, let's put a special effort in almost to make sure that like we're doing this on the merits. Any decision that we're making like is almost extra removed from our relationship. Because I think, hey, that's just the type of people that we are. We kind of want to set that high boundary. Would I have done it differently? Not really.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of feel like you sometimes almost have to be willing to put that extra work in.
Yeah.
You know, it's a sign of like, hey, this relationship's real and it's important, and therefore I'm going to work extra hard to separate it out.
I think what's really interesting is, I don't know the exact stat. The stat is something like a significant number of relationships start at work.
Yeah.
Like I think more than you would even know. Because people, and if I can find it, I'll put it in the show notes, but it's because people, you know, how do you meet? You meet people typically at school, right? You could be high school sweethearts, you could be college sweethearts, university sweethearts. You meet people online.
Yep.
You meet people through friends, but like you're pushed together in a situation where both of you are obviously interested in the same thing. You have similar life experiences that have put you in this position. So it makes sense that people want to start a relationship at work.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just unfortunate that not everyone views it that way. Like, while no one told me directly that it was an issue, I definitely got some indirect kind of snide comments here and there.
Interesting.
If you were in Gen X and above, I would say I definitely got the like, huh?
Right.
Kind of looks of like, really? Because I think for them, it was a non-starter. They would just have sex all over the place, but it was a relationship with a non-starter.
Yeah, like that generation had so many relationships at work.
Or like the cliche of like the secretary. Is that what you're going to say?
Well, I mean, kind of, yeah. Whereas we were like, no, this is like a real relationship.
This is a legitimate relationship. I agree with you. I think it was done differently. If somebody is sitting there and saying, I really like this person, I'm really afraid to ask her out or them out, what would be your suggestion? Like what piece of advice would you give them?
Honestly, one of the magic bits that we had was that opportunity for like, you know, repeated opportunities to get to know each other. So like walking home from the office, going on a walk later on, like that honestly kind of built up that confidence and that certainty.
Lunches.
Yeah, exactly. use those opportunities to actually get to know that person. And then pretty soon that fear will start to subside. You can build up that confidence through those repeated interactions. And then also kind of like, life's too short, take some confidence from that. Workplaces are accepting of this. And if they're not, is that a place you want to work? I know like moving places is not always so easy, but know that you can kind of control your own life. And actually that relationship is kind of the most important thing. If it's a real thing and you can test that out, if it's a real thing, put that first.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to give up like the happiness of a great relationship because you're worried about where you're going to go to work tomorrow.
Or what other people might think.
Yeah.
I'm going to add a disclaimer at the beginning of that, which is this is not Tinder, people. This is not like Bumble. This is not an app where you can immediately tell if someone is interested in you. So don't make that immediate assumption. What Philip is saying is build up that friendship. Take the opportunity to be friends with somebody first, because even if it doesn't turn into a relationship, well, great. You made a friendship. Yeah, you have a friendship. And I think that is a really beautiful thing. And that is why I love our relationship so much, because we were able to start as friends.
Yeah.
Like all of that like relationship-y, romantic-y stuff, that came later on, but it came later on because I knew who you were as a person.
Exactly.
I knew that you were interested. You knew that I was interested. And we had all the fun little kind of flirty bits along the way too. Don't let your workplace stop you from falling in love, but also make sure that the person is actually interested in you before you go and ask them out, please.
Yes. Yes.
I just needed to add in the little disclaimer there, just in case anyone's watching and is like, "Oh, I'm gonna move on over to Slack here." Another thing that people often struggle with starting relationships at work is this concept of how do you transition out of that work side of your relationship. Like now, when even having these conversations kind of funky because I'm a little bit like, "Oh yeah, we did work together."
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
But it was a long time. I mean, it was almost 2 years ago at this point. Were you at all afraid of that transition? Like, what did that, movement from us working together and knowing all the colleagues, all the gossip, all the stories, everything to, oh, wait a second, now we're a normal couple where things happen at work for me and you, and now I have to explain the context.
So I was really looking forward to that. Like that opportunity to almost have a bit of mystery about my day.
Yeah, that's right.
And like get to pick which stories to tell you rather than have to go through like everything in like minute detail.
Yeah.
And to have that space to talk about other things. I think that kind of gave us some space to breathe.
We had laid a lot of that groundwork prior. And so as we kind of went through the different transitions of our own relationship from friendship to dating to living together and then ultimately making the decision for I was going to leave the company and you were going to stay there. As we kind of went through all those different stages, we had made, like we said earlier, a really concerted effort to separate ourselves. Also, the company had gotten bigger, so our gossip started being less intertwined.
Yeah.
It was growing so quickly, so already I didn't know all the coworkers that you worked with, and then same things with me. And so I think that probably made it easier. I definitely wasn't afraid. I was really ready to take that step out, but I'm sure there are some couples out there where that's a hard transition for them to be able to make. It's kind of like that friend that you're like besties with at work, right? Yeah. And then all of a sudden you leave the office and you're like, all I can talk to you is about work. And that's it. That's all we have in common. Not that I was ever worried about that.
You know, one thing I missed?
What?
Shared calendar.
I know.
Knowing exactly like
that was so awesome. I really miss the shared calendar aspect too. The last thing I think I want to talk about is how do we now set up our lives so that we can, because we both work remotely, we both work from home. How do we set up our lives so we make sure that we're not in each other's hair all the fucking day long?
Do we totally succeed in that?
No, we don't. No, we definitely don't.
We have our own like separate rooms, which I think is essential.
Yeah.
Otherwise we would drive each other kind of crazy. And also there is no mystery again. Like, what happened to you today? It's like, well, I know everything that happened to you distracted me with it. But something I really like is, when we take a break, like we can literally just go in the hallway, be like, hey, do you want a cup of tea? Going full circle. Mm-hmm. Like we can have lunch together. And like that's a huge privilege and that I love.
I also think setting boundaries around when we talk about work.
Yeah.
But then also we've gotten really comfortable with, I hate to say the silences because I think that's pretty cliche, but when we have lunch, for example, I know myself that I just, if I've been staring at my computer all day, if I've been working, if I've been whatever it is, just really hyper-focused, I need to decompress. And decompression for me is not talking.
That is the decompression.
And so I just need to sit and I need to read. And sometimes we'll just do that next to each other, which is really nice. Yeah. And you can't do that at the office.
No. If people manage to like go read a book on their lunch break, like power to you.
Oh, seriously. Send me a message. Tell me how you did it so that I can replicate those mega boundaries. Okay. I think we've done a huge dive into our work relationship, how we met, how we flirted with each other. Some tips for people who are either in a work relationship yourself. Please send us a message, like send me a DM, put a comment on this. I'm always so curious what other people's stories are. There are different experiences. And then also how different workplaces handle work relationships. We may have just happened to be in a like really relaxed environment. I'm not sure, but I'm curious how it's handled, especially in a remote environment.
Or indeed, how have relationships changed now that it's fully remote?
Yeah,
like you don't actually get to come and meet people.
Yeah. Are relationships happening as often as they used to? Or are they just happening at company offsites? Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you tune back in next Thursday for another episode of Organized Chaos. My love, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, it's been a lot of fun.
I will see you all next time. Thank you.
Bye.